Most people assume that the deep, almost obsessive affinity Generation X has for dogs is just a product of middle-aged loneliness or a simple love for animals. But behavioral neuroscience and developmental psychology tell a completely different story. What you are experiencing right now is the latchkey bond, a complex psychological substitution where an entire generation, raised in the shadows of broken homes and extreme independence, has functionally replaced the unpredictable nature of human connection with the unwavering ancestral loyalty of the dog. This isn't about being a pet owner. It's about a generation that survived emotional neglect by building a nervous system that only trusts what is silent, physical, and incapable of betrayal. Researchers at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest adapted the same attachment tests used to study human infants and applied them to dogs. The result was staggering. Dogs form attachment bonds with their owners that are functionally identical to the bond an infant forms with its mother. But for Generation X, the latchkey kids of the 70s and 80s, this bond has been inverted. You were the children who came home to empty houses with a key tied around your neck. You made your own sandwiches, handled your own bruises in silence, and learned early on that the adults in the room were either absent, exhausted, or unreliable. This forced independence didn't just make you tough. It rewired your brain to be suspicious of human dependency. You grew up believing that people are unpredictable and systems eventually fail. But the dog was the only constant. The dog was the only contract you ever signed that wasn't eventually breached by a divorce, a layoff, or a digital algorithm. In 2015, a team of researchers at Asabu University in Japan published a study in the journal Science that revealed the neurochemical key to this obsession. They measured oxytocin levels, the hormone responsible for bonding and trust, and found a self-reinforcing loop that no other species shares with humans. When a dog gazes at their owner, and the owner gazes back, both experience a simultaneous surge in oxytocin. For a member of Gen X, who is often at the peak of their career and the center of family stress, human interaction has become labor. Every conversation with a spouse, a child, or a boss requires a mask, a management of expectations. But with a dog, the mask drops. The oxytocin loop bypasses your defense mechanisms. You aren't just looking for a friend. You are looking for an emotional sanctuary where you don't have to perform. For you, the dog isn't an accessory. It is the only place where your survival instinct finally feels it can stand down. Think about the silence of the 1980s. You were the generation that witnessed the birth of the divorce epidemic and the death of the forever job. You learned that stability was a fairy tale. In that void, the dog became what psychologists call a safe object, pug. Because you couldn't always count on the consistency of the humans in your life, your brain sought a non-verbal constant. Today, as the world becomes increasingly abstract, digital, and performative, your dog remains your last analog anchor. You spent your childhood waiting for someone to come home. Now that you are the adult, you've realized that the only person who truly waited for you without an invoice or a hidden agenda was the dog. This is attachment repair in real time. You are finally receiving the unconditional, physical presence you were forced to live without 40 years ago. It is a biological apology for the solitude of your youth. But there is a more visceral substitution happening as you enter your 50s. We have to address the empty nest and the unique genetic engineering of the domestic dog. Geneticists have found that dogs carry unique genetic insertions in chromosome 6, associated with extreme friendliness and human-directed contact seeking. Humans literally spent 15 millennia breeding a creature to be pro-social monsters. Now, as your children grow up and move into digital realities that you can't fully inhabit, or move out of the house entirely, your biological need to nurture has a massive surplus of energy and nowhere to go. The dog becomes the surrogate. But unlike a human child, a dog never grows up to tell you that you're irrelevant. A dog never becomes a stranger who only calls when they need something. A dog is a non-judgmental witness to your aging process. In a world that values the new and the fast over the wise and the experienced, your dog is the only being that looks at you as if you are still the center of the universe. This intensity of connection means the psychological stakes for Generation X are dangerously high. You have placed the entire weight of your emotional stability onto a creature with a tragically short life expectancy. And because your dog communicates through subtle shifts in behavior rather than words, you have been forced to become a master of nonverbal intuition. This brings us to the most critical discovery. Because your nervous systems are co-regulated, meaning your heart rates actually synchronize when you are in the same room, you are often the first person to feel when something is wrong with your dog, even if you can't name it. A 2024 study in Finland monitored the heart rate variability of bonded pairs and found that the synchronization was strongest during rest. When you sleep together, your nervous systems are performing a security handshake through the night. But this means that if your dog's habits change, if they stop seeking your side or start seeking isolation, it isn't just a mood, it is a biological alarm. For older dogs, these shifts are often the first signs of canine cognitive dysfunction or chronic pain. Because you rely on them to keep you human, you have a biological obligation to be their voice when their behavior starts to fail. The modern world is an exhausting theater of performative empathy. You are surrounded by people who care on social media, but can't be bothered to show up in real life. You are the generation that stood between the analog world of rotary phones and the digital world of AI, and you are tired. You are tired of being the bridge. You are tired of being the stabilizer. And in that 6-inch patch of mattress where your dog presses against your leg, you found the only thing that doesn't care about your resume, your mistakes in the past, or how much you have in your bank account. Your dog is the only one who sees the person behind the midlife mask. They are the keepers of the vulnerability you were told to hide when you were 10 years old. So, when you hear those nails clicking on the floor tonight, don't just think of it as a pet asking for a treat. Think of it as a 15,000-year-old survival strategy coming to fruition in your living room. You are healing a child who once sat alone at a kitchen table, waiting for a door to open. The door is open now. Your dog is there. And in that silent exchange of gazes, the latchkey kid is finally, truly safe. You spent 50 years building a world you can control, but you finally found something you don't have to control to be loved by. This is the ultimate luxury of your generation. The ability to stop being the architect and just be part of the pack. The social buffer effect isn't just a clinical term. It's your daily medicine. In a world of digital noise and social bankruptcy, your dog is your biological shield. They are the only ones who don't want anything from you except your presence. And for a generation that was told their presence was a secondary concern, that realization is the highest form of psychological wealth. You aren't crazy for treating your dog like a person. You are actually more sane than most, because you've recognized that some loyalties cannot be digitized, some bonds cannot be coded, and some wounds can only be healed by a friend who doesn't know what a career is, but knows exactly when your heart rate spikes in the middle of the night. Reclaim your nervous system from the corporate machine. You have the key, and for the first time in your life, you don't have to use it to let yourself into an empty house. Use it to let yourself into a heart that never learned how to doubt you. This is Psycholo Key, and we are done performing for today. Go home. Your pack is waiting. And for once, that is enough. In the quiet of the night, when the screens go dark, there is no more Gen X, no more bridge. There is just a human and a dog. Two species that decided eons ago that they were better together. You survived the 80s, you survived the 90s, and you are surviving the 2020s. But you aren't doing it alone. You are doing it with the only companion that was ever built at a genetic level to love the person behind your mask. Stay loyal to them, because they are the only ones who have stayed loyal to you. See you in the next discovery, when we unlock the next hidden mechanic of your mind. But for now, just listen to the nails on the floor. That's the sound of the only contract that was never broken. We have to look at the stoic shield. For the Gen X man, conditioned by a society that demanded emotional silence, the dog is the only socially acceptable outlet for affection. You can't tell your coworkers you're overwhelmed. You struggle to tell your children you're afraid of the future. But you can tell your dog anything. You can weep into their fur and they won't think you're weak. They won't use it against you in a divorce. They won't post it on the internet. They are the only vault left in a world without privacy. This is why the grief of losing a dog often hits a Gen Xer harder than the loss of a human relative. You aren't just losing a pet. You are losing the only mirror that reflected the real you. You are losing the only witness who didn't require a mask. This is the psychological anchor that keeps you grounded in a world that feels like it's drifting away. When you look at the empty nest syndrome from a biological perspective, it's actually a massive energy surplus problem. Your brain is programmed to protect and provide. For 20 years, that energy went into your children. Now they are independent, and that massive nurturing drive has no target. If you don't redirect it, it turns into anxiety and depression. The dog isn't just a companion. It's a purpose bridge. By caring for a creature that remains eternally dependent, you are satisfying a primal biological itch that your human children have outgrown. This is why Gen X is the primary driver of the premium pet food and dog wellness industries. You aren't just buying kibble, you are investing in the only thing that still needs you. You are buying the feeling of being essential. And in a world of AI and automation, being essential is the rarest commodity of all. As you close this video, I want you to look at your dog if they are nearby. Look at the gray on their muzzle and the way they follow your every move. They aren't doing that because they want a treat. They are doing that because 15. Here were 0 years of evolution and 40 years of your personal history have converged in this moment. You were the kid with the key. You were the one who survived alone. But you aren't alone anymore. The latchkey bond is the final reward for a generation that had to grow up too fast. It's the permission to finally be vulnerable. It's the permission to finally be part of a pack. You have the key. Now, go and use it for the only thing that actually matters. Subscribe to Psychology if you want to keep unlocking the truth behind the mask. We have much more to discover. See you in the next one.